Welcome to your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Dina Berg. Today, our guest is Jessica Blackborg. Jessica has a background in sales and marketing, later went on to become a real estate professional, even running and syndicating hotels. Later, she and her husband, Keith Blackborg, started Financial Journey. Financial Journey helps business owners reach work optional in 3 to 5 years. Their community multiplies wealth through strategy, deals, optimization, tax savings, and resources. Today, Jessica is going to talk about her journey in learning how to be a good passive investor, how to create a structure in a marriage to discuss and decide on how to allocate capital to passive investments, and then how to structure your family and care really well for it. She talks about finding a family helper, not just childcare, but somebody who can help their whole family be successful. Well, Jessica Blackborg, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So glad you're here. I'm excited because I speak with a lot of gentlemen who run family investments, who have plans how to manage and navigate passive investments in their own family. But one of the things I can't wait for you to talk about today is the way that you and your husband, Keith, do this. But before we get to there, could you just give us a little bit of your professional background, and then maybe up into the point where you and Keith got together, and then I can ask some more questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a background in sales and marketing, and right after college, I moved to San Francisco, was working for a company called News America Marketing. So we did ad sales basically for consumer packaged goods companies. And then just about 3 or 4 years after that, I was sort of just moving up the corporate ladder. I took a promotion for an account director role and came back to Dallas. And just around that time, Keith, we've been together forever, so it's hard to talk about just up until the point that we met, because we met pretty young. But Keith went to we were 20 years old. So we were still in college. Yeah. And at that point we were just still dating, but Keith went to a real estate workshop and just learned like basic 101 rental and flip real estate. And shortly after that, I went to the workshop myself to listen to it. And I thought, yeah, this is really interesting. He's a CPA. And so we both agreed to just start investing and buying rental real estate. We actually bought our first rental before we even bought our first home. And then I slowly just got more interested. I'm very detailed oriented. I really enjoyed the operations of it. And so I actually quit my professional job, if you will, and I went to work for a real estate education company. And the whole reason I did that was just simply so we could be on the inside in a network of people to help us figure out how to grow a real estate portfolio. And at that point, we decided we wanted to be what?
Could you just clarify, what is a real estate education company? What did the company that you went to work for specifically do?
They provided education for people wanting to invest in real estate, primarily single family. And they had basically the natural progression of a real estate investor. That was their main program. And so they taught people how to start in single family and progress into multifamily and syndications.
Got it. So today we would call that a mastermind.
Yeah, something like that. It's more group training, and they provided vendors and resources. And so actually my marketing role or my marketing background is what got me a foot in the door, because I was just in charge. I was in charge of membership sales.
Okay, got it. Okay, so go back to your story before I interrupted you to get the clarification.
Sure, no worries. So that as soon as I went to work for them, they had a in-house realty team and a lot of deal flow. in-house. And so we were lucky enough to get to be able to cherry pick some great deals. This was 2009 to 2011, 2012. Like I was working there the whole time, and that was just a great time in the market for us here in the Dallas area, at least. And so I learned all of the ins and outs of real estate and basically managed our rental and flips and wholesale portfolio of properties until we ended up going into, we were going to syndicate multifamily, but we ended up actually going into hotels. And so we ended up doing a big like hotel syndication. I ran the hotel for a little while. Then we hired a property management team for that property. And this whole time, Keith, sorry, my son's name is Zeke. So I get them confused all the time. But Keith ended up running his own, like that's how he set up his own CPA company. So he was doing that while I was managing our personal real estate portfolio.
So I'm fascinated by this. Keith, your husband, of course, was a previous guest on the show. If you're listening to this, you should definitely look up Keith Blackborg's shows. There is a 3-show series. It's really good. You're going to have to listen to them multiple times because I did, because it's really meaty stuff. It's not a salad. It is like a steak. So that content was really great. And I love what Keith did. And I love what Keith does. And I when you get to that point in the story, I'm excited for you to talk about financial journey. But it's, to me, I'm listening to your story unfold, and you went from sales and marketing in real estate to being an operator, pursuing a family, to all of a sudden finding yourself operating a hotel. And what did that look like? Were you like managing the hotel, booking guests? Like what, and how long did that last? And were you glad it was over, or did you enjoy it?
I actually enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm very more operational. I'm a kind of the operation person, like in our relationship too. So I like being in the details. I like being in the weeds. And when it came to a hotel, it was more, I ended up doing the general manager role for about 3 to 6 months. We actually hired a property management company, but I actually really wanted to like have a role within the operations before just like letting it go. Anytime we do something for the first time, we basically decide we need to train ourselves in order to be able to hire and have other people doing it. We did not want to just say, okay, property management, tell me what to do, because we would have no idea how, like, to have a basis for scrutiny of, what they're telling us, et cetera. So, and it was local and also no kids at the time. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm a very customer service people person. So it was great. And then I was glad when we did hire a general manager. And I continued to learn alongside them, but then it was definitely became more of an asset manager role.
Gotcha. You just dropped a really important nugget that I don't want to just gloss over. You said we want to get in and get our hands dirty and roll up our sleeves and understand how a business operates before we essentially can create an exponent to that. And I really like that. It's funny because when I think about my foray into property management, I, unlike you, Jessica, am not an operator. I've got great ideas. I've got great vision. I can move the needle. I can communicate and network, but I need an operator. My husband is a good operator, but this was more my idea than his, and he had his head of the books. But I knew when I entered into property management it was just a single family rental. I knew it was going to be ugly, but like you, I had this sense in a less articulate way than you just described that I needed to know what was going on. It was a train wreck. The first year, let's just say, there was a shooting on our property. It was awful. So I quickly handed the keys over to property management. Cash flow dove, and I was happy. So I love that you're an operator. I love that you took it on for a year, you mastered it, and you handed it off. So what happened after you syndicated the hotel? Talk about the returns. What was that like for you guys?
So we actually bought a hotel that was just trying to think of the right word. So a mom and pop run hotel, like it was called like Pyramids Hotel. So it didn't have any. So the first thing we did is we franchised it, and we ended up going with a Choice Hotel franchise. And so we ended up, I remember we ended up returning like 150% to our investors by the end. So we ended up selling too, which was, and we actually did that in about 2 years. And it was, I mean, no, I'm sorry. I want to say 50%. I don't even mean to say 150% because I know. So we were shooting for 100% returns. We'd actually invested in a multifamily investment ourselves, like as passive investors. So this whole time, like we're learning, like we did single family, we're operating, we're doing flips, we're doing wholesaling, and we're building equity, we're building capital. And then we wanted to do something bigger. We syndicated. This is the first time that we took on passive investors ourselves, but simultaneously, we had also invested passively with another syndicator. And we saw how they returned, it was 100% return on our money. And it was amazing. I mean, we were shooting for the same thing. We ended up at 50% returns, which is still great. Everybody was happy. And it was just really, it was a value add deal, just simply because we were able to take it from a mom and pop hotel to a franchise. And we really increased the occupancy. And
So did you
did a lot of
any CapEx, remodeling, or did you just optimize management?
we did remodeling too. We had to bring it up to the specs of what the franchise required. So
Okay.
and so I will say that actually went pretty well because there was a lot of guidance. I mean, we went into a franchise and they're basically like, here's everything you need to know. Here's your PIP, which is a property improvement list, that we needed to keep up with. And so from that perspective, it made it, like a no-brainer as to what to do to get our property up to their standards. And then
It's
from there,
minimizing quite a bit of risk.
Hmm?
It sounds like also a way to really minimize risk for your investors and for the process if you have the oversight.
Yes. So that definitely did mitigate some risk, especially as a first time, hotel operator.
Mm-hmm. Wow, great. So fast forward, I mean, feel free to fill in any other blanks, but at what juncture then did you and Keith start this next venture that you're currently doing? What precipitated that in your own passive investing journey?
So for us, I believe this was 2017, 2018. And I think, like I've alluded to before, Keith has definitely led this charge for us in investing and in real estate. And so he and I both were like, okay, this market is too good to be true. Things are going to, go down. We were really wrong, but things are going to just start going down. It's time to exit. And that the other thing too is we had reached our goal. I mean, we really just wanted financial freedom by the time we were 30. Like when we learned about real estate investing and passive investing and what this could do for us, that was our goal. And so we had reached that goal and we were still going. And I was like, wait a minute, we reached the goal. Can we please enjoy it for a little bit? Like, can we just slow our roll for a little bit? And so we decided to sell. We sold the hotel, and then we actually sold a lot of our rentals, and basically almost all of our rentals. And we realized, like, okay, now we have a lot of capital. We went on a 4-month trip around the world. We took a sabbatical basically before we did anything else. We did that, and during that time, actually Keith had sold his CPA firm too. So he sold his business. He started a business and he went through the whole cycle of starting it and optimizing it for sale. And so, I mean, really, God has blessed us a lot through this whole process. So during that sabbatical is when we just started dreaming again, talking about what we would do next. We knew we wanted to start a family. And so Keith, he's the one that really came up with financial journey, and that being he wanted to help others do what we had accomplished, but not just that, also help them maintain the wealth. Because through our process, I mean, you can acquire a lot of capital and then you can put it to work, but you also have to continue to understand. You have to transition from being an operator, having a business, to having the wealth, building wealth, maintaining wealth, be the business itself, and looking at it from that perspective.
Very good. Interesting. Okay. So at what point in time did you guys launch Financial Journey? What year was it?
That was late 2019, I believe. Yeah. Because we had, so this is at this point, our first son was born. And so it was shortly after that we launched Financial Journey.
Okay. And in summary, Financial Journey is what you just described. It's a community of people designed to help people be able to better manage passive investment, to help them get to work optional. How would you, summarize in a pitch what Financial Journey is?
So it is a community of people that we provide the resources and the framework to help people reach work optional and then maintain their wealth by consistently investing in passive deals. So there's deal flow within the community, but there's also education within the community. And there's just a really strong network of people that are all have the goal of reaching work optional. And that's a very important distinction too, is because as entrepreneurs, we don't really just want to lay around at the beach the rest of our life. Like, as nice as that sounds sometimes, we want to contribute, we want to produce. And so even Financial Journey itself has been more of a passion project for especially Keith at this point. It definitely has led us to continue to have a work optional lifestyle, and it has led us, it has afforded us things for our families so that we can, live more freely, I guess, with both time and mental freedom as well.
Oh, that's so great. And I will say Financial Journey is such a rich resource. I've experienced it myself. I'd love to hear you talk about how you and Keith operate as a executive team managing your personal wealth. How do you guys, I mean, at a very high level, obviously we're not going to get into spreadsheets, but at a high level, how do you evaluate a deal? Are there certain criteria? How do you guys communicate with one another? If you can give me kind of like a high level on your system on how that works, if you have one. I think this is really helpful and applicable to other couples. I think I speak a lot with men who are used to running the finances and used to running investments for their family. And they often say, I wish my wife would show more interest. And so I'd love to hear how you guys do that as a potential structure for somebody else to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, the deals are mainly vetted by Keith. Like deal flow, he vets the deals, and the ones that he likes, he actually creates a deal memo, which is something that we developed over time about like what are the things that we're gonna look through due diligence. And so the reason for him creating that deal memo is to be able to share that deal with me. And it's an exercise that kind of just helps us have some objective conversations, around the different deals. There's different asset classes too. So, if we're investing in startups, we're going to pay more attention to the founders, the people doing that startup. Like we have understood that that's going to be more of a key metric than anything else that is still too vague to really put too much weight on, as far as what do I call it? Like forecasts and stuff like that, right? Now, if we do invest, a lot of our portfolio is in real estate. We've gone outside of that since then because we've just learned about a lot of different asset classes. So once he creates that deal memo, I review it. If there's any calls or any like interviews with people, I actually typically try to watch those recordings as well, because for me, a lot of it is a bit of a gut check as well as to like, what do I think of the deal independently? And from that, we also look at our portfolio. So we have a spreadsheet and we do a portfolio review quarterly because we want to see how the deal actually fits within our portfolio as a whole. And part of the thing is like we have different risk levels, right? Like him and and we have, I personally like, I don't mind a lower return that's, but it's more stable and it's more cash flow focused. He is, he definitely likes to go for more of those value add like deals that are going to bring a big pot, but there's a lot more risk associated to it. So by having that portfolio in a spreadsheet, we can kind of see, okay, how many deals do we have that we consider more risky versus some that are more stable, and and so we're able to evaluate the new deal in light of what of everything that we personally have and decide like, do we want another big risky deal, or do we rather just balance out the portfolio with a little bit more stable cash flow deal?
Mm-hmm. So when you look at your portfolio, do you guys, I would love to hear how you break out your asset classes or allocate it. Like, do you have 20%, 20, 20, 20, like what do you assign a certain percentage to a certain asset class and then balance that out with risk and more conservative options? Or how do you guys approach balancing your portfolio?
It's a good question. And it's not based on asset class. It's actually more based on understanding our numbers and understanding if we're in if we want more equity deals versus cash flow deals. So if we're in and that's just a different, that's like, kind of goes back to some of the things that we teach in Financial Journey as to what type of investor are you. And then some deals are just for tax strategy. Like, is the tax implication of that deal, the tax savings, is it worth doing that deal simply for that? And so for us, I would say we have been more in the equity. We're in that transition, really. I would say that we're in the transition from we've been heavy on equity, value add type deals, and transitioning over to more of those cash flow yield producing deals.
Nice. Good. Something else I'm hoping you can talk about, because I know you recently spoke about it on another podcast type setting, is one of the things that has enabled you guys to operate your wealth as a business is also kind of creating organization and management around your family. Talk to us about how you approached hiring a family helper and what that has been like for your family, and is it bought back time for you and helping you to optimize running the business while still being really involved with your family?
Yes, that has been amazing for us to have a family helper, and it's something that I admittedly drag my feet on a lot because we've hired other people before for the business and things like that, but like having somebody come into your household, and it's not just actually a nanny, like a family helper for us is not just like for our kids. So it was definitely a big like mental leap that I had to make to feel comfortable with like somebody in my home a lot of times. But I mean, we actually ended up hiring a mother's helper first. Like I had never heard of the concept of a mother's helper. So we have two kids now, and especially after the second one, I knew that if I wanted to continue to be involved with the business or do things that was just outside of, running the household, I needed help. And so I thought to myself, like, I still want to be with my kids. I want to be the one playing with my kids all the time. That's what I thought, at least. And so I learned about a mother's helper, and I'm like, oh, it's somebody that just comes in and does chores, and they're making dinner, and I can be upstairs in our playroom playing with the kids while they make dinner. And that was great for a while. But kids, whether you're just playing with them or feeding them, as you know, need care 24/7. And so we're like, okay, no, maybe we really do need a nanny. Um, and so then we hired somebody that was great with the kids, but wasn't going to do any chores. And we're like, okay, this is still not working. Like, how do we get somebody that's flexible? And and so it came down to how we advertised for the position. I mean, we called it a family helper, and we basically said, we kind of have to break that mindset of, okay, you're just a nanny or you're just here to do household work. We had to say, okay, you're here to help us as a family. Like, I'm involved in a lot of our kids' activities, and it's great that my kids are very different ages right now, so they have very different needs. And I can still go and, take one to swim class or participate in some little gym class with one of them and have the other one here while she's also cooking dinner. And so it just really helps our family flow a lot better. And it also helps when I do have meetings or we have events that we put on with Financial Journey. We have people that can actually have gone to know our kids and our house so well that they can actually stay overnight on those occasions. And it has just helped the flow of our family so much that it was a little bit hard finding it. And we had to do quite a few interviews, but when we found the right person, then it's been great.
Quite a few. How many interviews did you do?
I want to say like 20.
Oh, hey, well, listen,
Yeah.
it's your kid. It's your greatest asset you will ever steward. So I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. So, and I do want to say though, the thing about our interviews is like we would do a phone interview, then we do a in-person interview, and then we do some trial days. So that's why maybe like I said 20, but it's not like, hey, come in and I can interview 5 people in a day. It was definitely like it took several months. And we would, especially those trial days, were really important because I actually was very intentional about the questions that we asked, and like we have our our rules and our values and like what we want for our kids and for our household. But I didn't actually lead with any of that. I actually asked a lot of open-ended questions to kind of figure out like what that person would do in a certain situation, or like how that person just naturally leaned in their own desires, especially when it came to the kids, right? And so that I didn't do that in the beginning. Like I said, we hired 2 other people before this last person has really worked out for us. And everybody will just say, oh yeah, we're going to do what you want, etc. But when it's so close, it's like personal space, right? You really want somebody that has aligns with a lot of your values very naturally as well.
100%.
And so
100%. So how many people made it to the Onsite trial?
I think we ended up doing like 5 or 6 on-site trials.
Really
Yeah.
good.
So I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. So.
Okay. And so I'm just curious, what has been your favorite outside of caring for your kids? What has been your favorite task that you've offloaded to your family helper?
Probably, yeah, the cooking, dinner, lunches. It's not every day, but I mean, I'm not a cook. And actually, sometimes They even go to the grocery store. Like it's been, I can just say like, go to the grocery store, and sometimes I don't even know what we want to eat. Like I don't even have to plan it, which that's been amazing. So
Yeah, I can say too, as a mom who has 3 kids, pretty young, 8, 11, and 13, come around 4 o'clock, I start thinking like, I'm not thinking about it, but somewhere in the back of my mind, it's like a slow motion Mack truck is heading towards me. What are we making? I didn't think about it. Sometimes I get my act together and plan ahead, but no, that's great. So anything else, like as we close the interview, which you've been so gracious, and I love the content that you've added. Highlight for me is the deal memo submitted to you. I just would love to be a fly on the wall watching that discussion unfold. Of course, I know Keith, and I can appreciate the way that you guys interact. But yeah, any parting shots that you have, advice or anything else you want to share as we wrap up?
Well, I guess I would say, especially in my role now, right? So I definitely am, my headspace like is definitely more around our kids and our house and everything. And I've let go of like my operator role. Like within Financial Journey, for example, I'm not as much of an operator role. But for our personal investment, there's been times where I have felt pretty tired and I've been like, just go for it, just do it. But I've realized that for even though like Keith was like submitting the deal memo to me, it's not so much for permission as it is we're building this wealth for our family together. And so we're working together. And so it's really important to make those decisions together and not just check out. And I've had a lot of insecurities in the past of not understanding it enough, not okay, oil and gas, like that's an asset class, or mining, that's another asset class we've invested in. And I'm like, I don't know anything about mining, and I don't really care to know as much, but still going through that exercise, even if I don't understand all the particulars, is also important for Keith and for my husband as well. So like, I would just say, I guess, if any women are listening to this, is like, don't undermine yourselves that you may not have a certain knowledge and anything. Like sometimes it's that intuition that also helps your partner in making that decision, and you're ultimately making it together. And so, do your best and don't undermine yourself.
I love that. I think it's so valuable, so important for husbands and wives to try to actually meet somewhere in this investment space. I realize it's harder for some personality types to do that. I love what you and Keith are modeling. My husband and I also have some rhythms, but what you're talking about is creating pathways for future generations. And I just recognize, Jessica, that you're doing that not only for wealth, but in habit. You're creating pathways your children will see that is normal and regular and will replicate hopefully. So I celebrate that and congratulate both you and Keith, and really grateful for your insight and experience and the ideas that you shared on the show. So Jessica Blackborg, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.